This taxing mechanism is wrong. When I talk to decision-making legislators on this floor, and their reply is, we might have to pass this and watch it play out, I'm incredulous. The concerns that y'all should have about this bill, they're still there. First, let's talk about pyrimidine. Colleagues, you have a floor letter from me showing the degree of pyrimidine on industry in Washington. There's a lot of numbers on it. The top of it says Table 1. Basically, what it shows is the gross receipts are in the first column, and then the degree of pyrimidine on that industry is in the last column. The first one is food. The original taxation is 0.3%, and then the effective tax rate on the value added ends up being 2.03% after it's been pyramided, after it's been taxed 6.7 times. I also provided a flow chart illustrating, it's got a bunch of blue arrows on it. It's titled Agricultural Product Flow Chart. This illustrates pyramiding or stacking of taxes. I used 1 ton of straw. I used grass straw because that's what I know. I was driving tractor at 12 years old, and I've only missed 1 harvest since then. I've operated tractors, managed the safety program, been the dispatcher, sold the straw in Japan and Korea. I travel to Asia every year and for over a decade. Please take a look at this flow chart. Each blue arrow represents a transaction. In this case of grass straw, that 1 ton of grass straw will have been taxed 8 times by it hits the feed, by the time it hits the dairy cow or the beef cow in Japan. Possibly there will be 1 or 2 exemptions in this, considering the grass straw is sold out of the country and depending on the definition of wholesaler. But even if there is 1 or 2 exemptions, that means this ton of straw is still taxed 6 or 7 times. I showed this flow chart to many of you, and here's a couple of the comments I heard. Which one of these is the co-op? None of these is a co-op. Another comment I heard, this will just incentivize companies to vertically integrate. Colleagues, since when do we incentivize getting rid of the little guy? Why would we incentivize cutting out small business? And the follow-up comment would be, well, if they're under 1 million in gross sales. What if they're not? 1 million in gross sales, we're not talking net, we're talking gross sales, can happen quickly in agriculture. Next question I received from colleagues, if they're a unitary grouping, meaning owned by the same people, then you'll be okay. They aren't, and in many cases, they're not. I am not okay with picking winners and losers. I believe it is the intent of my colleagues by exempting groceries is not to increase the cost of food to Oregonians. The definition of groceries in the bill is tied to the federal SNAP definition, which defines a grocery as food for home consumption. This leaves many local food products exposed to increased prices. For example, raw liquid milk leaving the farm is not a grocery. As that raw milk goes to become local dairy products, it will be taxed multiple times and ultimately raising the cost of a staple food product for many of not just my district, but everybody's district's fixed income families.
Excuse me, Representative, I lost track of time. Representative Lewis yields his time. Please continue.
There's a better way. Using a mechanism that does not use a pyramid scheme with a gross receipts tax effectively taxing, for example, the same pound of chicken multiple times before hitting the grocery store shelf is not only important, it's necessary for our working families and for our fixed income vulnerable Oregonians. Recognizing the supply chain is a better way. In order to recognize this, define it, answer questions about the supply chain and how it's defined, it would have taken longer than 2 weeks the Student Success Committee was given to vet this concept. Instead, one business group that represents big business was at the table. It's not okay. We in Oregon have long prided ourselves on local food and products we grow here in the state. We love farm to table. We love our local farmers markets. The idea our cows in Tillamook County eat hay from Harney County, that restaurants in Portland are supplied with Oregon-grown foods is true to being an Oregonian. Under this bill, and because of stacked taxation and pyramiding, we are incentivizing our locally grown food to leave the state. We are incentivizing exporting our local products to wholesalers out of state.